Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very special episode of Being Vulnerable.
In person.
For the first time, got a special guest for y'all. This is my best friend, Eric, who helped produce my my film Invoking a Saint. If y'all have seen it, it's our film. But
And I was technically on Meaning for Suffering.
I'm Chris, aka Carpal Tunnel. I'm gonna have my guest introduce himself. Eric.
I'm Eric. I'm a filmmaker, a video game dev now, a musician, although you're never going to hear any of it.
Well, you will if you keep following me. How's it been trying to make it in the film industry since you graduated?
You know, I've personally taken a gap year as a choice just to kind of focus on who am I before I get really busy into the career and figuring out, living on my own and that kind of thing before making that step.
So when I started being vulnerable, it has to do with having something on my resume, having something to show that I can actually be part of a talk show, whether if it's idea-wise, what we're doing here with just being vulnerable, but also how I can communicate with my guest and how I can interview people and bring out sides of them that is new and different. My first experience with it was the documentary Fake It Till You Break because I was having people be vulnerable with their imposter syndrome.
I think that's a good documentary too, because I mean, you don't play as much of a role as some directors do in their documentaries.
The biggest thing was to interview and see how other people felt with imposter syndrome. I want to talk about our friendship, man.
Yeah.
How because that is something. This friendship we culminated through COVID times. I still remember that day. I felt really bad about it. I think it was actually during audio pro our
Oh,
sound
with
design
sound? Yeah, with Bateman.
with Bateman when you were like you reached out and you were like, "Can I be part of your film? You want to help each other out?" And I was like, "No." I felt so bad about that after because
Well, good news, I forgot. So,
it was like because we were both in the same situation. We were like recording under like a little cage.
yep. Oh,
I
that was production with Nate.
That was production with Nate
Yeah.
when I hung myself in front of her.
Yeah.
I just remember it was the sophomore year when that was the first time I met you that I first like even know who you were. I tried to do Quicksand was the film, which is on YouTube for anyone who's watched it, but the first cut of Quicksand was so much different than anyone has seen. Um,
I can only imagine.
it was yeah, it was like a silent film where I actually like hung myself in front of all my classmates and all of them. I just remember Will reaching out and saying that they were traumatized to see me do that. And the fact that someone had reached out saying that they actually like cared that much about me, that did make me feel less alone, especially during the COVID times because we were like, yeah, all separate. But you had reached out to me saying you would be willing to work with me on my film if we could work together. And I mean, I was I was at that point where I was literally dealing with mental health. So personal issues, also the whole fact that we were in COVID and everyone was like remote. Like I had a hesitation, not like you were gonna get me sick with COVID, but I just had a hesitation of having someone come into my personal area of because I wasn't living in the right area. I was like literally, I didn't have my own room. I was like literally living in the upstairs part of my living room. And so it was a bit of like embarrassment. Like if you said yes and wanted to come over,
Hmm.
I was embarrassed about my living situation. And that wasn't just you. Like if anyone had asked me, I would have said the same stuff. I really felt bad about that, especially since the year after our junior, we actually got to take a class together, and you were like right on board with me because we it was episodic writing.
Yep.
Um, that was the first time we actually got to really see each other in person and
Yeah.
like
And work on good, real projects as opposed to 2020 made up projects trying to make the best of a garbage situation.
Tales of the Mile High. That was the first show I ever got to show run.
I still think that's the best show written in that class. I think it's well beyond the scope of anything a student can do, unless it's an animation student who might make one episode in an entire semester.
He didn't want to be a showrunner. That whole aspect, like he didn't want to be chosen.
Every aspect of that class, unfortunately, was
Like
a disaster
like
to no one's fault, I think.
imagine if my show would have been chosen, like, because I would have been so passionate. I would have been there, and I would have made other people passionate. Like what is going on with the Forgotten right now is like we're doing important work, and Tales of the Mile High needs to be made because no one knows about these stories like the Hop Alley Riot and all these stories that are important. Like those stories need to be told because it's history that people don't know about. Like that was a big thing when was like pitching it to people. It was like, have you heard of the Hop Alley Riot? No one in Denver who lived in Denver hadn't heard of that. The only people that knew about it were the people playing Pokemon Go who went past that Pokestop and or the people in the Chinese community that like don't forget
Right.
because their ancestors were part of it and lives were lost and it was like the first race riot that happened in Denver ever. Like it was the first time any of that happened. And that was just my pilot. Um, all the other stuff, like all the how, I mean, a lot of people don't know that Denver was considered the lynch town of America, like the lynch capital. So not we, but the city itself had lynched more African Americans and not even African Asians, African Americans, Irish, and Native Americans than any other state. So like we were the capital of lynching,
Hmm.
which people don't really know, which I explored in one of the episodes. Also, the episode about the Sand Creek Massacre and
And that's a much more well-known story, but I feel like the that even the term massacre doesn't really fit. Or
yeah,
sorry, it's what I mean is the term they normally use is battle, and battle
uh,
doesn't fit. Sand Creek Massacre is not normally how that's phrased, and that's
it
messed up.
it's because they changed it because they didn't want to shine a bad light on themselves doing it as a massacre. Like, because that's what it really was. I mean, you can't call it a battle when kids are being killed. And it really wasn't a battle. The battle was the thing that came after that is when the Native Americans fought for themselves after all that whole thing.
Right.
Because it actually, and the big part of that storyline was actually the Ludlow massacre, which happened right before the Sand Creek massacre, where they actually went and massacred an entire village, and no one knows that story. I tried to tell that story.
Your opportunity may yet come.
Tales a Mile High. Yeah. That is one that's still I'm gonna still gonna get that made. I just have to become a showrunner before anyone will take me seriously, which is what I'm doing with the cartoon show. Because the Nomad needs to be made too.
You
Um,
got a lot of ideas.
and they're all based off historical stuff. It's like stories that need to be shared that I just create a little storyline within them so that history can get made. And that's what I kind of do with The Forgotten is it's about all these endangered animals, but being able to share their story in a way where people can I know it's a weird thing with TV and film because it's like you're trying to make something entertaining for people, but none of this stuff is actually should be entertained. They just need to be learned. But I, the way I'm trying to do it is make it into a medium where it can be engaging for something to watch, but it's at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make light or entertainment out of these stories. I'm just trying to share these stories with people.
Well, in a way, that entertainment factor comes out of making a story with compelling characters. Like, if the audience cares about the people who are going through these things, they're going to be entertained, even if it's in kind of a dark, twisted way, by seeing what happens to them because they want to know.
That's so true. Yeah, and that's what the forgotten with the endangered or uncharismatic animals, uncharismatic fauna.
Is there an aardvark in there? I find them very uncharismatic.
Oh, now there's going to be, and you're going to be playing.
Okay.
Uh, but no, it's a big thing that one of our producers actually had written a paper about is um charismatic megafauna and how they are the ones that are always protected and everyone cares about. These are like your bears, your lions, your tigers.
Hmm,
Like none of them have ever been endangered because people care about them, so they put like people know those animals, they're not forgotten.
right.
Where like a maned wolf, I mean, I've taken biology classes, anthropology classes, and there's a lot of animals that they don't actually like put in the textbooks.
Well, there's way too many to put them all.
But there's the ones that they just like they're forgotten.
Yeah, but they harp on the ones that they do. There's probably
Yeah.
room for a lot more. And for encouraging people who are interested to explore further, just like you've done, rather than giving
Yeah.
you this impression that you know lions, tigers, bears, snakes, and you know all the animals.
Snakes are actually on the lowest of the list because people are so scared of snakes even though
Hmm.
um they don't understand it. I actually didn't put a snake as one of the main characters until Daniel Nichols for breakfast actually was saying you need to put a snake as one of the main characters because of how they are treated and how like you see a snake, they're like, kill it. Like they're not protected.
Yeah,
They
it's such a primal fear for people. I think that's why it's rooted deeply in the symbolism of religion and all kinds of different bits of culture. So I don't blame people for not liking snakes.
I never even thought of that with the religion thing because is the character with the apple tree,
Yep, the archetype of evil.
the archetype of evil. That snake actually has something that only really exists in humans is they have an offensive mechanism rather than defensive mechanism. So they actually put on like what they describe it as like the best theatrical performance. Then they have it in four steps. Their first step is that they like act like they're dying and they like play dead in a way where they're like, oh, and like the snake will like flip on its back and like seizure and they're like trying to make it seem like for the predator to be like, oh, this animal is already dead. But if the animal doesn't stop, then it does the second one where it does this like it does like this predatory dance thing, even though it doesn't have venom and stuff like that. It makes it seem like it's more scarier than it should be
Okay.
after it plays dead. I forget what the third thing is. Oh, the third thing is it acts crazy. And then it will start doing like I got this twitch in my neck and you don't want to mess with me. I'm- So it was like a perfect character to have as for the show, the cartoon, because it's a character who's being over dramatic. So it's our theatrical dramatic person who
It's the drama kid.
it's the drama
That's
kid, the
awesome.
drama. Yeah, and that's Zeno. That's and and then he gets to teach the octopus how to act.
Hmm.
So that's where the mimic octopus learns how to put on different masks and roles because it can, but it kind of has to learn it
Mm.
through experience. It is such a perfect character type because they could be every character if they want to try. So when it
Well,
comes,
and I think that relates to both of our stories in a way, like just the way that both of us had to go through kind of acting as, I mean, I think everyone does to some degree, but acting as this persona and then having to learn to break that so that you could actually start being yourself.
yeah. So you get it because that's its big thing is she has never experienced the world that the other characters have, where they're not fi they have never had a belonging. Like the main wolf, he doesn't belong with the canines, with the deer, with the foxes, with anything like that because they don't accept him because he doesn't look like them, and which is something that every single character that in the main group, and even with even the antagonist. I mean, it's a social commentary on, like with the white Bengal tiger. He doesn't look like any of the other Bengal tigers, so he experienced racism because of the color of his fur. Like all these stories that we're exploring in that show are very social commentaries on human beings, but in the lens through animals. So it's not like right on the nose, but it's there.
If you see us looking down, it's because of a
Yeah.
local canine.
Rocky's been on the show a few times, but you should Rocky. Let's talk about friendships.
Okay.
Choosing the right friends.
Oh, yeah.
Something I haven't really talked about on this show, because,
And something I still don't know if I have right
but
as a broad concept, at least.
you've experienced it though, just from some of the friends that I know you had that did you wrong at the end of the day. Like they didn't treat you like a true friend. They might have in the moments you've had difficulty with friendships with that because people take advantage of your kindness.
Well,
He's
one of the things I found was I don't know who to attribute this to. I know I read it somewhere, but it's the idea that you need to find where you're going and then figure out who's going with you, as opposed to figuring out who's going with you and where are they going and following them. When you get those two things mixed up, that's a recipe for not being yourself, for performing, for ending up in trouble, all kinds of things. And I think, yeah, if you are someone who's really compassionate and wants to put yourself out there, that when you put yourself in the company of people who are willing to use that, that's a recipe for, at the very least, exhausting yourself.
like that aligns so much with just the new friends I made on Threads and stuff is that we're all supporting one another's art and trying to be there to go along the ride. Even if it's just like being a fan, they want to see you succeed compared to some of the friendships that are like, I mean, just an example is just within film school. Like, yeah, we had classmates that were our friends, but were they really trying to see us succeed? Or are they trying to use us to help them succeed?
Well, and I think those two things can coexist in a really beautiful way. That's one of the best things about life is the ways in which we can be selfish in a way that is selfless. Like everyone's lifted up by your actions, including yourself. And I think that's really beautiful. But yeah, sometimes yeah, there were a lot of people. I mean, I think it's a young person problem too, is it's just really easy to get caught up in the me of it.
No, I mean, I feel that with you, man, because you were someone who wanted to succeed alongside me. You wanted to see me succeed, and you also wanted my help to help you succeed. It's just the difference of like the people who are trying to succeed without,
Just
you know,
I think it's when you are concerned with like, how do I get the best cinematography award? And that's what they're trying to do, not how do I do the best cinematography to make this the best film it can be? Because unfortunately, sometimes, those are actually contradictory. That the incentive direction is different there because, for your film, for the most part, it's simple is what you want. You want simple camera work, simple sound, all through most of the film, and it's never going to call attention to itself. It's never going to win awards. That's not that in itself's not going to win the crew awards, but what it will do is create a final product that is good. And I think yeah, a lot of the other students with us just had no comprehension of how being showy can be detrimental to what they're making.
Yeah, because I was making, I mean, it, I make stuff that is impactful for the audience. Something that, I mean, you've seen it just even with Tales of the Mile High, from Meaning for Suffering and Invoking a Saint. I was talking about these things that I wasn't trying to win awards with them. I was trying to educate and trying to let people know they're not alone. With Meaning for Suffering, it was with mental health. With Invoking a Saint, it was with racism. Or just like,
And you've succeeded. By all accounts, if you look at our cohort, the number of people who've won awards that anyone's heard of outside of the film school is basically zero. Whereas the number of people who made a film that accomplished helping people in the way you wanted to do is us. It's our group, as far as I'm aware.
yeah. I mean, yeah, because the one that won all the awards and was like the best film, everyone said, which is a story about it, just a clown falling in love with, yeah, like
And love you, Alex. That's a great film, but
it. But what was it accomplishing?
it's entertainment. It's
Yeah,
you feel something while you're there, and I'm still not
yeah,
sure what it says.
and I do understand like entertainment as that aspect, but like we have the opportunity and we have the platform to actually make an impact. We're making art people are gonna watch. And that's how I always feel even with my music. Like I don't make songs that don't have a deeper layer for someone to learn something from or someone to gain something from. I mean, even with this show, being vulnerable, it's to promote that vulnerability is actually a strength. Like this isn't just a podcast about interviewing people. It's a podcast about showcasing the power of being sensitive as a man, power of being vulnerable, power it power it can have. And the amount of people who actually do support and watch this show is they're not watching this because we are talking about stuff that is entertaining. No, they're watching it because they want to see other people showcasing their sensitivity and being them true selves and
I would
letting
say it's not
yeah.
mutually exclusive. I think that is entertaining, is what that's telling you.
I mean, hopefully it's entertaining. We're not trying to make a boring show, but it's why people want to be on the show. They, I've gotten a lot of requests being like asking when they could be on the show
Hmm.
and stuff because they want to be vulnerable. They want to speak about things that society has said not to speak about and stuff. And that's my I guess I'm promoting this right now, but my rap album coming out is about the it's an antithesis to what rap is actually about. So I have a song on it called Being Vulnerable, where I talk about how being vulnerable is beautiful when it's suitable, it is usable, and it's soothable. What it does when you're actually allowed to be yourself and someone's giving you that space to actually be vulnerable. That is something that I experience. Like it is so healing to me to be able to talk about these things that I've always been told by society, by the toxic masculinity, having like older brothers and stuff. Like these are things that are weak, is what they say. But no, that's that being able to talk about these things is actually strength.
Yeah, it's kind of a misunderstanding. I think of The Art of War actually, uh, when Sun Tzu says something along the lines of when you are strong, act weak, when you are weak, act strong. And what he's one of the things that this you can interpret from that is that people, if they're naturally acting as they should, if they're weak, they're gonna stand out there and they're gonna puff their chest up and they're gonna act all tough. But really, like that can come from a place deep down of insecurity. Whereas someone who's strong is going to be able to be vulnerable and share those things. And they're going to be able to be perceived as weak. And when the need arises to be strong, they rise to that occasion. And I think it's been really beautiful getting to see you grow into being someone who's more like this. It's really cool.
You've always accepted me for who I was. Like I never felt like I had to ever wear a mask around you. Yeah, I got to be myself around you, which is like something that why you're my best friend, man, is the aspect of not having to be someone else. I could just be myself around you, which I know sometimes is can be a little too much because I get a little too emotional or
Oh, it
passionate.
happens to all of us. I do the same.
But I feel like it's because you are always yourself around me. Like I never felt like you were ever being someone else. You were always being yourself. Like I admired that so much about you.
Yeah, in a way, it's funny because there was I struggled a long time to find myself at all, but now that I've done so, I think it's just impossible for me not to be. I don't know how people go around not being authentic unless they just don't know what authentic is. It's
And it's something I experienced a lot because I couldn't be myself around the circumstantial friends that I had that were
mm,
all in gangs and they're very toxic and in the way of bringing me down with them.
mm.
Like I had to be a certain person to be accepted by them. And whenever I try to be myself, then that's when I start getting picked on and like like I had friends pick on me because I'd be I'd cry or something and they just be like the many t I can't even put a number to the many times that I've been called a little bitch by friends or brothers or family members because I was being emotional. And like when I finally found myself, when I finally was able to realize that my sensitivity was not a weakness, that's when I was able to start questioning all that stuff and not put on that mask. But I mean, it changed my life. It allowed me to become a musician, film person, a writer, and all the things I'm doing what I'm doing now is if it wasn't for me rejecting their their view of what strength is, because now a lot of them are looking at me like you were actually right, but
Mhm.
they're still in that same they're still in that same mindset where they can't actually let themselves be vulnerable and stuff. Maybe one day on this show I could have someone from my past on the show and actually talk about these things that they struggle with, but
That'd be really cool.
I get it. I don't see it in them. Like even yeah, they could see they could see me and admire me for that and look up to me for it, but they're not still being that. But
Yeah, I guess it comes from that need for belonging that we all have. And when you don't feel that sense of belonging within your family unit when you're younger and within your friends as you get older and within your coworkers and everyone around you as your life continues, that I guess, yeah, it becomes much easier to put on a mask and just conform. But that ease of doing that in the moment is replaced with this internal eating of yourself, and it's horrible.
it is, yeah. I we all look for belonging, and if the people around you are not going to accept you for your emotions, like yeah, you do want to conform. You, yeah, you do everything to hide who you truly, how your true feelings. Because I mean, the people that I had grown up with and stuff, like, in gangs and stuff, I mean, what they really wanted was belonging and friendship and being accepted. So in their heart, they are very sensitive and emotional, but they're not showing it because they don't feel like that is what's gonna give them belonging.
right?
And then that's just changing everyone around them to like what changed me, like because these same friends I would be playing Pokemon with before. Like we were like kids doing things like playing make believe when we would be like at a playground and be like, this is my little house. This is my make believe wife. What we would make believe and pretend to be before all of the toxic masculinity in society kind of impacted it. We would be very sensitive. Tell your friend, yeah, this is I pretend that this girl that I like is my wife, and then pretending that you are together, and because they're telling their friends that, they're telling me that, and then I'm pretending alongside of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it requires this kind of mutual buy-in when you're engaged in a game like that. Everyone has to come together in a way that's really rare, I think, in the adult world, and not for good reason.
Like the only thing that I could think of that is similar to it is playing the game Sims, where you're actually like creating your wife and you're like,
I think making a film's like that because until you have that footage shot, we are all playing pretend. The actors are playing pretend, the cameraman's playing pretend, the writer sure as heck is playing pretend because they're pretending this script's gonna get made and then hoping that somehow it does actually. We're all pretending the whole way and we all have to buy into it.
you touch on something that I haven't really talked about on the show too, is why I was so connected with acting
Mm.
and why like theater and stuff was just like so impactful for me to be, because when I'm acting, I'm able to actually be myself. Because I'm yeah, it's such a weird meta concept of like I can actually be very feminine on camera and do things that I couldn't really do in real life, but it was actually me being me, like crying on camera, or just being very emotional or and stuff like that. That is more me. So I'm like acting, and it's such a weird concept because
It's a reverse mask. Rather than putting on the character's putting on you.
yeah, yeah, like,
That's so cool.
that's a good way to put it too. And I never felt that until I did theater acting, and it was like me being emotional is actually what is encouraged in me rather than being, yeah. So like, so why a lot of my characters are me, like
I think it's inescapable. Like regardless of who you are, eh, like I think there's three tasks in life. The first one's to understand yourself, the second is understanding others, and the third is understanding the world. And we're really bad at that second one of understanding other people. And so when you're writing, you're gonna have to write yourself or else you're gonna write something unbelievable because at least you exist. You know you exist. So if you write yourself, that person exists somewhere.
yeah, I mean, and even as a writer, seeing someone be able to perform something that you wrote that is like you, and that's what I felt with Anthony with being with invoking a saint. Like he captured exactly the emotions and stuff that was me. So him being able to be me, that
He was amazingly professional.
yeah.
I Anthony, shout out to you.
Wherever you are. Yeah. Like just even the questions, because I was a director for him, so when he was asking me these questions about the character and stuff, like he was like, this character is so um emotionally lost with his identity. He doesn't know who he is. And like I was like, you got all that? Like that was what I wrote the character for. And he understood that character so much in that way. And it's with the Forgotten, most of the characters have that identity issue, except the ones who are a little stronger, like even like the octopus character who has never experienced societal norms and societal pressure to be someone different. Um, where all the other characters do, and that's why there's so much inner conflict within them. Um, she doesn't experience that because she is just born. She's born in this world that, yeah. So, and she's never discouraged to be someone different because of that. And and that's why she's like the perfect character to have the audience perspective for, like audience things world through her eyes, especially as a cartoon, so it's for the younger generation and being able to have that same experience of questioning why the world is this way, because it shouldn't be. Um,
No kidding.
it shouldn't be.
Do you ever get that feeling when you talk about stuff like this, just like weight came off your shoulders?
I do. Um, I actually been told by my psychiatrist, but also people who deal with like therapy and stuff, that like this show is actually my therapy.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's, yeah, because I've been able to talk about things that I've never really spoke about before. Um, with the show, I've always been an open book, so everything I talk about is literally like I'm not hiding anything when it comes down to it. So I've talked about some of my most shameful stuff on the show, um, knowing that it's might help somebody watching it. Talk about like just me being in the whole gang world because I was trying to just be accepted and find community, and just shameful stuff with that. Um, the shameful things with me trying to find love and how that has led me down to hurt people, which I never intended to do. But yeah, like just the things that it's hard to talk about. But on the show, I've always not stopped, or I never held back. So I've always been very, it's being vulnerable. Yeah,
Name drop
name drop.
or title drop, I guess.
Yeah, the last episode that I did with Balls, I had to like reach out and be like, I hope people don't look at me differently, because some of the stuff I talked about, when I talked about them with classmates and they shared it around, then I was like looked at completely differently. Like talking
Mm.
about being in jail and all the stuff that happened when, I was suspect number one of a homicide, but I was literally the homie fell out my window. That I told that story last episode.
I forgot about that one until.
But yeah, like when I talked about that, because I talked about it in our writing episodic,
Hmm. I remember that.
and everyone was coming up after me wanting to learn more, like learning more about when I was shot at, and like all these experiences that I I I gave as feedback to somebody who had like a script, and I was like, this is actually what really happens. And I try to give my actual experience with it. And that's how that came out. But then how a lot of the people looked at me after, they looked at me like this guy was a criminal. There was like a lot less trust
Which is
interpersonally.
strange to me, I should say, because when someone is coming out that like what person who is currently a thief or who is at high risk of becoming a thief in the near future is going to come in the room and tell you, "Oh yeah, I used to be this thing." Like, what a terrible cover story.
Yeah, because I just I felt safe enough to talk about that stuff. But then, yeah, there's certain people you can't really be vulnerable around because there is going to be a judgment factor to it. And it might be interpersonally, like them judging themselves because they've had the same stuff, but
Mm.
how they put it on to other people. Because, yeah, a lot of people looked at me different after that. Because, especially since it was me, because no one expected any of that to come out of me, because I was always the soft, sensitive, shy kind of character. So when I talked about those things, it was but I did realize who my actual true friends were through that. The people who did not look at me differently. Um, which you were one of them. Also, Derek Gerhardt was one of them too. Like he never looked at me different from that. And instead he respected me for actually talking about it.
Well, what you see is people
Yeah.
who don't see their own capacity to have been that same person in their under a different circumstance or to have done something else equally bad, whatever that means. Those people who are either unable to see that or are just denying it outright, which is probably the worst, are going to end up projecting that out onto you in your current self. Like, oh, this is a different person. I'm not evil. That's evil over there. There's no, I can't do anything wrong. That's the evil right there. Like, and so, yeah, I wish there was something you could do to really
Yes.
help people get into that shadow work, but
I mean, I actually even experienced it as an RA
oh,
when
okay.
when I opened myself up to actually let people know my past as an RA. My boss knew all about it. She actually would have stories to share with me. So like she never ever took anything that I had. Like she never judged me for my past. She more judged me for what I was doing at the moment. Redemption and like overcoming it all and being a mentor for other people.
Yeah, it's the Christian idea, right? Becoming born again. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that, anyone, not just Christians, can learn from this idea because when you have this moment of realizing, like, seeing the whole picture, you can, th everything just changes. You are born again.
Born again. That's Daredevil.
Daredevil.
Uh, That's the show that's coming out. So excited for Daredevil show. Um, but yeah, I mean, my born again did come through religion, um, being given redemption when I didn't really deserve it. But it helped me change my whole life and being a symbol that for others to be born again. And
Mm.
that's when I would share these stories, that's what it came from. This came from everyone can find redemption even when you're at the worst part of your life, like even when you've done bad shit and you're on an addict and criminal and all that stuff. I was able to overcome all that stuff by well through something out of my power, finding redemption that was able to change me, but also just what I would do after that. And all my intentions after that was to help others. And so when I would share those stories, it always had to do with trying to help others. When I,
Yeah,
sh
don't
yeah,
discount your role in choosing to go with that because you could just as easily have seen what happened and turned around and said, "Okay, back to how it was."
yeah, back to being an addict. The attic in the attic song, that part of the musical.
Oh, okay.
The
I
attic.
haven't heard it yet, so that's why I was laughing, I find the title amusing.
The attic in the attic. Oh, um, yeah, I mean, I have the first like songs on this rap album that is more like positive that
Hmm.
I haven't really written very positive stuff from it, but by positive I mean like I'm not sharing mental health stuff and stuff. It's more like I'm giving wisdom that is doesn't have to really deal with like how meaning for suffering is. All those songs are very dark, but that is me sharing my darkness with others so they can find the light like I did.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's the natural evolution, right? Because the first step is to get through the hard time, and the second step is to grow from. And yeah, so I'm really proud. That's exciting. That's exactly what you should be doing.
I know. Would you be willing to share any of your hard times
Yeah,
with the people?
starting the stories is the hardest part. Um, I think not through my family having done anything wrong per se, just but things that weren't done right. That while I had, by all accounts, a perfectly normal and good childhood, something went wrong where my development of my own identity never really happened. And so I started finding my identity through everyone else around me, whoever I was talking to in that moment. And this had improved a lot long before you even met me. But like in high school, I was a chameleon. Like one person would talk to me, and I was mirroring them back to them so strongly that everyone liked me, but no one liked me because no one, not a single person around knew me. And that process of just looking to others for your own stability is useless because they're not always there. Or you're going to have a fight and a falling out, or maybe not even a falling out, but the anxiety of always expecting, oh, I'm going to be worthless because of this thing that happens, this thing that happens. And then the buildup of just trying to prepare with all of that is so much. And really, the only thing when this goes wrong you can do about it is eventually decide I'm going to push through these feelings and be alone with myself and meet yourself. And really, when I went on that road trip that you came along for part of it, that was just a continuation of this process I've been going through of trying to really meet myself and find that identity that's from in here rather than out there. And yeah, it's been tough.
I can understand that. It took me so long to be able to actually find who I was and actually like question all of the stuff that had been kind of programmed into me. Um, just like even with sexuality, because I would been called a little girl or I was called gay for the longest time by people that like it made me feel like that was something wrong. But when I was able to actually explore who I actually was, I was able to actually come like to like I was able to actually be like, am I gay actually? Am I a girl? Am I any of these things that anyone had said because they had said it? But at those times, I'd always get angry like at myself for acting a certain way, but I didn't know why I was acting that way. And it took me a while to realize that what it was I was just I'm a very sensitive man. I'm a very and that is okay. But it took me a long time to be able to accept that it was okay for me to cry, for me to be feminine, for me to hug my best friends and say I love you. Yeah. Like it took me so long to be able to do stuff like that. But I'm so glad I was because it made me such a stronger person, be able to actually reevaluate what society wanted me to be compared to what who I really was. Um, and now that I know that, I'm so much more happier because I don't have to like hide. I don't have to compartmentalize these emotions and these things that I feel like I have. I can accept myself. And that's what allowed me to love myself because I had never loved myself before because I was hiding all these, and I was kind of told that like these aren't things I should accept from myself. And because of that, it was very hard for me to love myself. Um, and yeah, just that whole that whole experience of really knowing who I was actually was the first time that I actually was able to love myself, which actually allows me to love so many more people. I love everyone equally. I love some people a little more. Um, but everyone has a little bit more love for some people. I love this guy right there.
Love you too, Chris.
Yeah, but it makes me more ready for a relationship because I'm not hiding anything from anybody that I do get into a relationship with. So it's
Well, and the more you have your needs met beforehand, the less you're asking of the other person. Because I mean, in reality, I don't think this ever quite happens, but the ideal thing is that you want to go in with just no expectations, just building the relationship together, and you're getting all your needs met, they're getting all their needs met, and this is just adding to the joy of your lives. And I think in some ways it's unavoidable to have projections of childhood figures or whatever creep in, but it's really cool to see that, you've gotten to a place where you need that less and less.
yeah, because I mean now I don't have to act like someone different to try to make them love me, which is what I did in all of my past. Like I had to. Some of it came with just having the bad relationships, because
Yeah, I can relate to that.
having your girlfriend call you a little bitch by the way you act is like
That's a whole nother level.
that. That was something that, yeah, it took me so long to overcome that. But then me finding myself after I was able to realize that, shit, it's her insecurities. And yeah, she might have wanted more of an assertive man type role, but she didn't choose like I was never that assertive man. So it might be society even making her think that that's what she needs as a man. But
Well, and
hey,
that's
her.
definitely the wrong way around to find the man and then find the traits.
Yeah,
Like, good luck with that.
yeah. She cheated on me with someone who was supposed to be the assertive man, but honestly, it's her loss now because I feel like I'm way more stronger than not even just with that relationship, but with a lot of the women who like experienced that with me. It was like they either took advantage of my weakness, of my sensitivity, and made me more not myself,
Mm.
or they would see who I actually really was and that they knew that they can take advantage of my sensitivity. And like I would forgive them. That's I've forgiven way too much infidelity in my past where I shouldn't have, but it was that whole finding belonging, wanting someone to love you. Because that's the only way I could love myself in the past was through someone else's eyes.
Right. That's similar to what I was talking about then. That,
Yeah.
yeah, it's incredibly painful. And often leaves you disappointed.
Yeah. And then now that I can love myself, not through someone else's eyes, through my own eyes, I don't think anyone could take advantage of my sensitivity now because I'm not bending to what their needs are. I'm myself, and if they can't respect it or love it, then I know that they're not right for me.
Sometimes having compassion for people is to say the mean thing. It's to tell them, hey, you're wrong. I have these boundaries. You need to be out of my life. And that's having compassion for yourself too, which I think should always come first.
Yeah, because you're basically it's almost it's almost like mentoring in a way, but it's a little different because I don't even know where I was going with that.
Well, you're giving people the tools for self-awareness.
Yeah,
Like, if you enable someone to continue a bad behavior by forgiving it time and time again, they're never going to learn.
yeah,
That's what you were, I
that's what I was
think,
getting
right?
at. Yeah, it's like they're never gonna. Yeah, that's the whole mentoring aspect I was trying to say is a good relationship, friendship, whatever it is growth, growing together, teaching each other.
A good life is growth.
Yeah, because if you're not growing, then you're dying. That's y- y'all could quote me with that. Literally wrote that in a poem the other day. It was
Oh, did you?
if you're not growing, you're dying. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to die before I'm dead, so guess I'm growing.
I mean, that's what life's about, is growing. I mean, if we could take any lesson from plants, they're always growing. They're trying to reach
And
the sky.
sometimes you gotta prune a branch or two.
But chopping them off from growing or you know, not giving them the light to grow, just giving them darkness. Unless you're a mushroom and then you're growing in a different way.
Well, those are fungus. They're different.
Still growing. They're just growing spores. Yeah.
That reminds me though of my personal rock bottom, if you will. I just honestly, I think what was it, 2 years ago now, about I just had this moment of like I things had gotten so bad for me internally and I had covered it so much. I just had this moment of wow, like either this is it or I need to change something and start this growth mindset and start, is it therapy? Is it spending more time with my friends? Is it picking up a guitar? Is it what are these things I can do to make just everything, you know, to not change my life, not to just quit school, change jobs, all of that, but to make what I wanted to do actually work.
Yeah. Like it's a self, it's like actualization.
Yeah, self-actualization. I didn't know that word then. I didn't know growth mindset. I just knew I needed to change something because I wasn't about to say that's the end.
Because that was a thing I faced when I lost sports.
Hmm.
It was like all I ever knew was sports. I didn't think I could do anything else. Um, the one thing I had done before sports and everything was writing poetry, which was something I never really shared with anybody. And it was something I was taught because of my ADD and my speech impediment. I was in speech therapy classes, and they were like, in order for you to express emotions, just write them. So it allowed me to actually, because I wasn't, this is another thing with society too, like I wasn't allowed to express emotions and like I also see that in my dad of like not being able to express emotions, but he has now gotten to a point, he's gotten a lot older where he doesn't hold back his tears anymore. He doesn't mind hugging his sons. Where like back in that day, he could not, there was something about like I never hugged or kissed my dad because he was held back by these like barriers of I don't know if it's toxic masculinity or just societal norms of that. But now my dad doesn't mind crying, doesn't mind kissing me on my cheek and giving me a great hug, and especially like saying goodbye, like seeing my dad cry for the first time. I think he even said that it was the first time he actually really cried was when he first said goodbye to me when I went to college. It's like the first time, and he said it was so hard for him. Um,
Because you're the youngest, right?
I was the youngest, and I was first one to go to college in the family, but also like I'm spitting image of Bootstrap Bill. Um, yeah, but it took. I mean, it took him so long to be able to do that. The fact that I was able to do it earlier. Now me and my dad have such a great um bond because he doesn't feel like he has to hold back on those emotions. And now with all of his grandchildren, he doesn't hold back. He's willing to say I love you. That was something that, you know, I had never heard from my dad till I was an adult in that way. And I know that I helped him a lot with that too because because he is me. Like me and him have the same basically sensitive soul, but it was something he wasn't allowed to do since when he was young. Like he had to always put on this role of, especially when he started a family and started being like, you know, the father and like the man of the house. He felt like he couldn't be um emotional at all. Like he had to be the tough person, but
It's a lot of pressure.
it's a lot of pressure. And he held so much back. So when did came out, when he was finally able to be sensitive, it just was like pouring out of him. And I mean, it was the same with me. I it came out of me when I was watching Friends out of all shows. After I lost sports, that's what the beginning of the story was. Like not knowing where I was, what I could do, where I was going and everything. And I was like living back with my parents, barely leaving the room, and I became a pretty big alcoholic at that time. Um, I would watch the show Friends, and I'd be able to cry and be like, I want this type of friend. I want people like this around me. And I, like it was always happy tears. I was crying with them, but inside it was sad because it's what I'm like wanting the most is like that type of belonging. Um, Also not knowing that I could do anything else besides sports because that's all I ever knew. Um, I was told that art was not anything I was ever going to be good at. Um,
And if you believe that, it's true.
and I believed it. It had to do with like I'm horrible drawer, and then like doing music at that time. I was like, oh, I had like such a horrible voice, but I didn't know that you had to actually work these muscles to be actually like Because with sports, it almost came naturally to me. Like
Mm.
I never had to really try hard to be good at sports. I was just like naturally gifted at it. So when I first picked up the guitar and tried to learn it, I sucked so bad, but I kept trying. My hand was hurting, and that's when I went to the doctor and I was like, "Why is my hand hurt so much?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, carpal tunnel syndrome, and you'll never be able to learn guitar." And that gave me the motivation to actually really push for it. Because I've always known I was going to be great somehow. I was always supposed to be famous. I was always supposed to be the one to pull the whole family out of poverty. And I thought I was going to do it through sports. I had no idea I was going to be able to do it through music and film. If I'd never tried, I would have never been to film school. I would have never been to music school. I would have never done all that. But me believing in myself at that time made me rise. I'm still rising. This show would not exist if it wasn't for me trying to play guitar.
Well, and
Um,
I love the way that even now you see the same kind of attitude of like, oh, I can't do that. Okay, what can I do? Like, oh, okay, I can't play guitar right now because I've got carpal tunnel. Like, okay, how am I gonna play this now? Like, how am I gonna fix my form so that this problem doesn't happen again? How am I, oh, maybe music school, whatever. I still don't know the entire story, but whatever reason wasn't fitting for you. Okay, why don't I do film? Oh, I don't have a film job right now. Why don't I make my own show? It's this
yeah,
attitude of it's the winner attitude of like, okay, I didn't do well at this. What do I do next? Never giving up. It's just changing directions.
there's so many times that I almost gave up, but I didn't. When I went back to school and at Front Range, it was basically me learning guitar and me learning music. And I found out that I was like really good at music theory. It was like a little puzzle pieces I put together to learn. Front Range only had Guitar 1 class, so they didn't have anything to go further than Guitar 1. Same with Music Theory 1, Production 1. But we wanted it, so we basically petitioned the school to get more music classes. And they were like, well, we can't do that, but we'll allow you to do a music club. And then that's where the Front Range, it was called the Guitar Club at first because it was basically Guitar 2, but it became the Music Performance Club. And through that, the many people that joined it, it showed Front Range, oh, we actually have enough people to actually create a music program at Front Range. So they created that for my like that sophomore year, and me and Madison, the other person that was basically going to Front Range for music, we were the first two people to ever graduate with a music degree at Front Range. Even though it was not capable at that school, we made it capable. Like we were the ones who created that music program, and then that music program exists now. Because of that music program too, that club, my face is forever gonna be on the wall in Front Range. Like, because we got the award for I got the award because I was the president for leadership in a student organization. I got
Hmm.
the outstanding leadership for the student organization, but I also got the outstanding um student award for the arts, the entire arts thing in Front Range.
Nice.
So like I literally got I got my award and my picture forever cemented on Front Range. And how I went to CU Denver was Paul Musso, who was he's the director of the music department at CU Denver. His best friend that he went to school with as a child became my best friend at Front Range, and he got him to come be like a guest speaker at the club. Talked about CU Denver. His biggest thing was like, yeah, the Fray came from CU Denver, and they're the music department's like big selling point. It was like
Right.
you could become the Fray, and the Fray was like my first concert I actually got to see live. So like I was like, oh, I could do this. And then he talked about the songwriting department. At the time, I had a 4.0 at Front Range. I had all of these schools want like they were offering me full ride scholarships to go there. Harvard Extension School wanted me to go there to be in the art program, to be an art teacher,
Oh wow.
basically to basically pursue the degree to be an art teacher. And but I had like full ride scholarships for like so many different King's College in New York, which now I know I should have probably taken, but because King's College is where like they have a really big theater program, but I didn't know about theater at the time. Um, but I knew for some reason what Dave Musso had said. It's like CU Denver is where I need to go. So when I
Mm.
applied to CU Denver and I was accepted in the music program, it was like no scholarships at all. I passed up on debt. I got in so much debt going to CU Denver. There was something about it that was like, this is where my path leads me to. And that's how I came to CU Denver. And
That's why we're here.
that's why we're here. Like a year there doing the music degree, and I didn't get into the songwriting program that I wanted to. Took a theater class, and that theater class, the professor, probably one of the biggest impacts in my life. She was like, you have such a skill and such a understanding of what it takes to be a director for theater." And she was like, "I want you in this program." So I because I ended up directing the theater production that year as a freshman, directing that theater production that we did at the school at CU Denver.
Mm.
And just like her whole influence on me and like believing me is what made me um switch to theater, film, and television. And then that some summer is when they dropped the theater program from CU Denver. So I ended up in film and television. My degree still says theater, film, and television, but
Oh really?
yeah,
That's cool.
because I switched before they changed it. So
Oh, your grandfathered in.
I was grandfathered in, but then I had no idea what film was, a completely different freaking language, everything about it, because you
No
have to deal
kidding.
with camera. I had no idea with camera and stuff. And that's why a lot of the things that I've directed or been a part of, they're like more theater productions that are recorded.
Yeah, like Meaning for Suffering really is just a recorded theater production where the stage is a little bit more on wheels than usual.
I mean, even with Invoking the Saint, I kind of directed that as like a theater director, like because that's I know that's where my strength is working with the actors, getting that type of performance out of people. It's not about directing the camera. Um, so that's so I basically had to start over back at one when I switched over to film because it was, and that's why I was so. I mean, a lot of people looked at me different because of that in my freshman year of film because I didn't know anything about filming. Like it almost felt like people didn't think I should be there. There was only a few people that did not treat me like that, which was like Will, Derek Smiley, and Savannah. Those are like the only three people that actually took me seriously my freshman year.
And it's strange to me because when you look at, the people who knew the most about film coming in and how much they grew in 4 years versus how much you grew in 4 years, you can tell, who was putting in a little more effort. I genuinely think that most of the people who knew the most coming in wasted their money because they could have gotten the same thing out of just working on 4 films in 4 years.
See, I was treated a little different in script writing one.
Oh yeah,
Cause yeah, cause that's you were in that class, right?
yeah. Especially the writing a feature senior year. Once we got to there, I think, yeah, I think that was a room where I felt like you were a lot more accepted.
And but when I went into nonfiction script writing, where I went into the classroom, and this was the first time I met people like it was the first time I met Derek, and the first time I met Johnny, first time I met people that were already kind of accepted and stuff. Like they did not take me seriously because I really didn't know much about film, and because that was that the second semester of freshman year that we took that.
I can't remember.
But like just so I always had at the beginning, like I always had like this competition with them because I was always willing to raise my hand and speak in class, but it was to ask questions because I like really wanted to learn. I'd like because I didn't have the knowledge, so I was always, and at that point I had already known myself and everything that I didn't I was not going to waste my education. I'm going to ask every question that I can. I'm going to raise my voice and everything. That was fresh. That was the freshman year because sophomore year is when we went into
Oh yeah,
COVID.
remote.
Yeah. That was actually that year because it was the second semester of sophomore year that we went into that. Um
What a
yeah.
time.
What yeah. Um so glad this is still recording.
How do you wrap these up?
Oh, I have my little spiel.
Okay,
I was waiting for time. How long we've been talking?
over an hour, I think.
Anything else you need to get off your chest before we start? Before we end? Oh, thank you.
Need a room with a door next time.
Oh,
I'll bring you back up from here next time.
been doing a lot of these in the back room of like
Mm,
where the books are at by the
I
fridge.
remember seeing that now. I didn't notice it, but
It's because I'll hang this stuff up where no good time.
I think I remember seeing the wall just a little though.
Well, everyone, thank you for joining Being Vulnerable. Episode This is season 2, episode 7.
Hmm,
Um,
it's quite a run already.
right. Season 2 will be on Spotify after I hit episode 8.
Nice.
And special guest, my best friend, Eric.
Peace.
So what do you have coming up? Let people know.
So if you're into spies and shortwave radio, I'll be releasing a game, name to be determined so far, but it's about running a number station, a shortwave radio station that the Soviet Union, Cuba, the US, England all have used to communicate with their spies abroad. And we've also got our series,
The Forgotten.
and on top of that, I don't know anything about what's going to come from it, but I'm going Albuquerque, so look for my name in the credits on Netflix.
If anyone wants your help to edit or do anything like that,
Yep.
how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so one of the easiest places is going to be Instagram for that kind of thing. Send me your first message there, and we'll move over to email, text messaging, phone calls, whatever works best at that point. But I'm huge on remote editing work when it comes.
What is your handle,
It is ELO underscore my friend.
everyone? I hope y'all stay safe out there. I am Chris, aka Carpal Tunnel, and we'll see you next time. Being vulnerable.
Take care.
Peace.